Hello, and welcome to another studio-oriented tutorial, first introduction video. Well, this is Battleship. Um, I guess we can start by watching the Battleship introduction video first. In Battleship, we're going to um, learn about visual effects a bit more, and but mainly focusing on the water effects, ocean, boat interactions, and boat integration. And there will be several other shots where we'll have to build some additional custom water forces to to manipulate and override the inherited velocities from our ship here. Um, and finally, well, we're using our Houdini model just for a little bit of a twist instead of the aliens in the movie. And finally, we're just gonna conclude our series by doing our pyro. Now, reason I want to build a tutorial like this is due to several reasons. One of them is, so this is not like an FX specific tutorial. Um, we are going to be learning many aspects of visual effects, but focusing on Houdini, basically. Um, the so this tutorial is to learn visual effects um, from well, we're skipping the modeling stage, obviously, but because this model is available online, and I'll pass the links, is to actually learn how to kind of put together an entire sequence, understand visual effects as a whole, not a single task that you're given, continuity, um, look depth continuity as well, and then sometimes breaking the continuity to make things look a bit more interesting. Also, breaking the physics to make it look more cinematic. Um, and since obviously we're making movies, we're not making documentaries, so we can bend the reality as well. So what are the goals? The goals are to become a better artist, obviously, while learning these additional tools like Flip Solver and Pyro Solver, Oceans, and Redshift, and sequence-based workflow, and um, basically just to be almost like getting out of the box a little bit instead of a single task-driven learning, but rather thinking, building setups that you can use throughout a sequence, and how to kind of like put it all together. Um, so what we will learn, if I scroll down a little bit, we're going to be learning planning and shot breakdown. We're going to be learning naming conventions, directory setups. We're going to be learning a little bit of animations and single pivot rigs. Well, it's a ship. Um, Houdini specifically, we're going to be learning Flip Sop Solver this time. We're not using the DOPS for this tutorial, just like my RBD simulations, RBD Bullet Solver, RBD Houdini has been integrating a lot of new tools that runs at the SOP level, and they're surprisingly, not really surprisingly, I suppose, uh, really well done. So we could just manipulate our scenes without even using any effects license, but we'll dive inside and we'll also do some tweaks. We're going to do a little bit of an animation as well. We're going to be creating sorry, I skipped that part. After the flip, um, we'll tweak our flip simulations. And once we're kind of like happy with the base layer, we'll create additional spray layers using pops. We'll learn how to float particles, separate from the Whitewater. We're gonna be learning a lot of pipeline related stuff, not diving so deep inside, but we're gonna learn a shot creation with presets, maybe versioning with Python, Houdini variables, setting frame ranges automatically, setting camera resolutions automatically, and so on and so forth. I have used HQ setup to do my work. So even if you have a single computer, using HQ allows you to um, queue your work. So when you're working a sequence-based workflow, if you have things lined up, you can just lunge, like, as I did when I was doing this tutorial. Um, you could, I think it should be still running in the background. Okay, just let me reboot it, and I can show you. Give me a second. And it allows you to line up the work, and then you can basically just go for a coffee or a walk, and then come back and see the process going through. Obviously, the simulation is a big part of this work. Now we're going to learn a bit more stuff about caching, actually a lot of stuff about caching and simulating in a manner that we could do inside camera culling, inside volume sampling during the .NET, right? Inside the .NET. So it's basically like dumping. It's not like writing the simulation out through the camera frustum, but for specific type of things, we could dump the information out of the camera culling, out of the camera view inside a simulation to kind of keep things more and more efficient. We're going to use VDB points for storage optimizations, versioning with Python. Um, Obviously, we'll be using a lot of tops for those who had done my simulation tutorials before. We're going to be doing a lot of tops, wedging, versioning, so on and so forth. We will render using Redshift. Therefore, we're going to be creating Redshift proxies. What do they mean? How do you override their shaders? If they're proxies, what are the advantages? We're going to be setting up some render AOVs. We're going to be setting some cryptomats. And for those who don't know what cryptomat is, I think I can pull it up right away. So basically, Redshift spilling out, or most of the renders can do that actually, spilling out render layers that you could, like, this is a render layer, one of the render layers, and that's a cryptomat, but a cryptomat looks like this. And if you drop in a cryptomat here, node, and you can actually just select, let's say you want to make this radar glow, right? And this one is based on material. It's going to give you an alpha, so you could do whatever you want with it. In general, throughout this tutorial, we're going to be doing a lot of wrangling. We're going to be doing infinite oceans for sequence-based workflow. We'll learn how to export cameras for Nuke, for Sky as well. But in general, we'll be starting with our Nuke Studio, or you can use anything you want, like Fusion, DaVinci Resolve. We're going to be creating our project folders after we define our edit, obviously. We're going to be setting up project variables. There are going to be some config files we'll be creating, like which we'll get through further, where Houdini will be following, reading this file to set it shut information, basically. Which means we're going to be creating little tools like if I this one doesn't have it yet, but if I have a look, some simple Python that allows you to read a JSON file, and then based on the shot variable, which we will define shot variables. I guess we can do this one. So I'm gonna modify this one. So this is shot 10. Yes, this is shot 10, and then if I put a variable here, let's say shot BS 010. Okay, we'll talk in detail. I'm just giving a little bit sneak peek. So then if I say shot 10 testing, what's the resolution here? It's the 1000. Suppose this is pre-roll, but render resolution, render frame range is 1001 until 1080. Save. Let's see if it's gonna work out of the box. Okay, it didn't. Probably need to restart. It's BS. No. Shot. And that's gonna be BS20, I guess. Save. Okay, so just some information on is the how to kind of like, okay, let's say the resolution is wrong. Now the resolution is correct. And if I try to do this some other object, it's gonna error, so on and so forth. We'll go in detail, in-depth detail. These are just simple examples, but I'll explain why I think it's important to know a little bit of how this works, or at least why there is this. Continuing, so that will be the chapter 1. Chapter 2 will be this is introduction, obviously. Chapter 2 will be our so we set up our environment. We'll lay down a grid, do a little bit of animation with cameras. And then we'll do flipbooks. Pull this in, edit, and once we're happy, we'll start our infinite ocean, our cameras, and our sky dome. Finally, once we have our animation and our basic environment set up, we'll create the interactive elements, which are our simulations, of course. We're going to be creating those flip setups. We're going to create those ship cruise setups and custom force setups. And we'll kind of do it in a way that we can use it throughout the entire sequence. And finally, then we'll move on to chapter 5. We'll create the Whitewater. Let me see. Actually, while I'm talking about it, because this is probably just boring to read it. So what we're going to do, we are going to, for example, create a redshift using Houdini Oceans. We're going to create a little redshift ocean. What does that mean and how does that work? We're going to be directly using the, if I dive inside here, and then that this one is just running the grid. If I just go inside ocean surface, we will be directly pulling in the node that generates the EXR without pulling the EXR into a disk. So we'll be directly referencing this in bake maps inside the shader. This is a technique that can be used in uh, in many parts of the Houdini. Like if Houdini is generating anything in the chops in the copnet, and then that means we could just use it inside any other place in Houdini. So if I go to my material, water arrest displacement live, it's just using a full path to pull in the shader information. The texture information is going that displacement, but that's what it creates basically. So imagine we're going to be doing all this, and then I guess do I have the but before we start doing expensive renders, we will be all doing this in through flipbooks. So, our camera, our animation, um, our animation. So it's important to get it kind of like right because seams and everything will take a lot longer time. Um, if I open another shot where, for example, we're creating this additional effect, right? So that's 130. Let's open 130. That's where the custom fluid solvers will come into effect. Of course, I'll be creating all of this from scratch with you all guys. If I dive into my water sim, that's where my custom solver is going to come into effect. So something very similar to this, I guess. If I go here, just let it cook. We just get like the edge of the boat and create a random force out of it. Convert it to a volume. There's a multiplier and pass it down to the sim so it doesn't just do some boring ripples, but it ends up doing these big splashes, particularly in the shot. And this one. What else? We kind of got that nailed down. We're gonna be start creating our additional scenes and animations, and then we'll start basically putting the first versions of the Sims on our farm or single machine farm HQ. Um, Once we kind of like went through the entire thing, we can set up our pyro setup as well. So the pyro here, we're not going to be spending a lot of time here. Uh, the whole understanding of I mean, maybe it's one thing to mention is that there's been a lot of messages saying the trails don't, the shells don't leave trails and so on and so forth. And the idea of this tutorial is, let's say you're an aspired visual effects artist, or you just want to learn Houdini, or you want to understand the other aspects of visual effects. And this tutorial is meant to kind of like give you a very good overview of how we approach sequences, right? If you just focus on a single shot, it's likely that you'll be doing it many times because you don't understand the continuity, and it's important. Well, it's not important to the stage that it has to be frame by frame correct, but it's you need to understand certain things that won't bother the audience. Um, Finally, we're gonna set up our render shaders and render layers, and then our render ropes. And I'll show how to finish one shot in compositing. New, bear in mind that I'm not a compositor, but I do my due diligence when I do my effects work to kind of show how to kind of like to prove how to present the work. And yeah, that will be it. I think it's going to be several long chapters, but this is the introduction. And without further ado, we'll start the chapter one. Thank you for watching.